State Course at Tripura University. Well, it's a new program approved by MHRD Government of India in Higher Education aimed at tapping the talent pool of scientists and entrepreneurs internationally to encourage their engagement with the institutes of higher education in India so as to augment the country's existing academic resources, accelerate the pace of quality, reform and elevate India's scientific and technological capacity to global excellence. Today, our GIAN course is on smart growth, smart grid, secure and sustainable energy. Now, we are moving toward the official opening. It's a tradition to light a candle before starting any auspicious events or rituals. Light symbolizes the absence of darkness, grief, and unhappiness. Lighting the lamp is to remove the darkness from mind and heart. Light is the symbol of returning the mind. We have to be purified. It should spread happiness everywhere. It would be our pleasure to please request our Vice Chancellor Sir to light the candle and announce the start of the program. शुभम करोति कल्याणम आरोग्यम धना संपदा शत्रु बुद्धि विनाशया दीप ज्योति नमस्ते. Words to convey our thoughts can be difficult. Treasure memories to remember and carry them in our hearts. Let me please request Palak sir and Shorufnundi sir for the floral tribute to our ladies.
Participants, my colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this first GIAN course program at our Tripura University on smart grid, secure and sustainable energy. This program includes lots of advanced topics on smart grid and cyber security. I want to thank Dr. Udashakar Poddar who has given me the consent for that I can submit this project proposal. I wish all candidates will be very intellectual program and beneficial for all the participants of this GIAN program. And finally, on behalf of Tripura University, I again welcome all of you to this program. Thank you.
And chief guest of this function, Dr. Udashakar Poddar from the Curtin University, Australia. This is the GIAN program, Global Initiative on Academic Network. This is a new program launched by the MHRD, Government of India, to interact the Indian scientists, educators with the international scientists and educators to enhance the quality of human resource. This was announced on the 28th November 2015 at the IIT Gandhinagar and simultaneously IIT Kharagpur by Srimati Smriti Jyoti Irani, the then Minister of MHRD Government of India. And this university, I think, is the first time we are going to get this opportunity through the GIAN. We are going to call our international expert for our seminar or our courses. In this GIAN program, many systems are there where we can have the global projects in combination with international and our national. We have, so that MHRD has thought that is how our Indian scientists will be exposed to international scientists and international scientists to come to our India to give boost to our system, our education system. So this is I am happy that this electrical engineering has started this program. Definitely he has taken a lot of trouble to do this because many formalities are here. So after that, this program is there, and the topic of the program is a smart grid, secure and sustainable energy, and it is a very good thing. We are also like to have our university, the Green University. With these words, I thank the organizer to give me opportunity once again. Thank you.
Key areas of research include smart grids, cyber physical system, and information security. He has attracted more than $1 billion in research funding in the areas of smart grids and sustainable development. We will now request Dr. Prithesha to enlighten the audience with his opening words
on smart grids. I'm very privileged to be here, and I feel very special to be given such a welcoming treatment, and I sincerely thank Dr. Champa Nandi. She has been phenomenal in putting all these things together, and I also understand there are a lot of other people who have worked behind the scenes who I don't know at the moment, but thank you all of them. I think I will have enough time over the next 10 days to get to know you and know you all much better and share my experience in this field and also learn from you in this area. I also thank Professor Anjan and Professor without whose support it would not have been possible for me to come here. I think I would like to sincerely thank Professor Anjan Kumar Ghosh, Professor Anjan Mukherjee, and Professor M.K. Singh for having me in this beautiful campus. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us. I now request our guest of honor, Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Anjan Mukherjee, sir, to deliver his speech.
Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Anjan Kumar Ghosh, Honorable Dr. Prithesha from GIAN University, Australia, who is the keynote address speaker, and our Dean of Science, Professor M.K. Ghosh, M.K. Singh, Dr. Champanandi, and Dr. faculty members and the participants. Global Initiative on Academic Network provides our faculty an opportunity to seek some knowledge and experience with the international famous faculties. It provides space to our faculties to interact with the other faculties who are internationally well known. It also gives an opportunity to our students to interact with the internationally famous faculties. So it is a very nice program, and it is the first time the Tripura University Department of Electrical Engineering organized this type of workshop. I like to congratulate the Department of Electrical Engineering and especially Dr. Chomparuji for organizing such a nice topic, that is smart grid. Actually, what we are doing, we want to get the maximum output with minimum electrical consumption. That is our motto. But to do that, we need some workshop like this type of thing, so that we get the maximum benefit of our energy which are stored in our nature. We use the fuel, but at one time this coal or fuel will be exhausted. What to do? We have to think about that things. So let us hear for the workshop, and the last 10 days there will be a deliberations of nice lectures by Dr. Vijay Poddar, who is an Indian. He is actually from Pune. I have had a talk with him. His parents are in Pune. We are glad that he is here in the northeast side of India. We are very much privileged that he is here and will deliver talk, and our students will get something from him. Thank you very much, and I wish that this workshop will be a successful. Thank you.
Also, Vice Chancellor, Professor Anjan Mukherjee, our Dean of Science and Engineering, Professor N.K. Singh, and our guest and our honored speaker for the next several days, Professor Vidyasagar Poddar, our faculty members present here, our scholars and students and participants. It gives me great pleasure to inaugurate this GIAN lecture series in our university. I will give you a little bit about how this GIAN program has been developed, what is the motivation in GIAN program. Actually, this program, along with many other changes in Indian academics, have started with our Honorable President of India, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. President of India, by virtue of his position, is visitor or the highest authority of all the central universities and institutes of national importance such as IITs, IIMs, many institutes. There are 130 universities in India, of which he is the head. So, Honorable Pranab Mukherjee, when he took office 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, he took this role of visitorship or headship of the central institutes very seriously. And he started comparing them with their international counterparts, international universities. He was very much troubled in seeing that none of our central universities, on which government spends a lot of money, amounts anything in the international scenario. It's a very sad thing we found. In global ranking, global surveys, Indian universities, Indian institutes were not present. In fact, they are still not present even after 4 years. But because of this lacuna, our Honorable President started thinking, and he started a series of meetings with the heads of these central institutes. The first meeting was held on, I think, 4th and 5th of February 2013. After that, it was held again in 2014. 2015, February it was held, and 2015 November also it was held. So we have had a series of meetings with the President, the Central Minister, and the Vice Chancellors or Directors of all the Central Institutes. And the single most agenda is why Indian institutes, Indian universities are not featuring in international surveys. And after deliberation, it has been found that it is the quality and it is the backwardness that is holding the Indian institutes. It is not the capability of students, it is not the capability of the faculty members, it is just the isolation, it is the lack of knowledge of what is happening elsewhere and a very, very ancient system. In fact, honestly, if you look at Indian higher education system, we are following the system that British installed in Calcutta University, Bombay University, Madras University in almost 170 years ago. And that led to a lot of, in fact, the meetings with the President, which we hold yearly, is not really a meeting, it is a workshop. We brainstorm, we deliberate, and we come up with a set of agenda items for implementation. And in fact, in the last 4 years in Indian higher education, a lot of changes have come. And those changes are outcome of these deliberations that President supervises, President tells us to do. A lot of things such as choice-based credit system, innovation clubs, inspired teacher network, adoption of online courses. These are all basically directives of President. At the President's directive, these are getting implemented by UGC and MHRD. So GIAN program, I think, originated from the ideas, from the deliberations in the 2014 set of meetings. And MHRD took it up and has implemented it. Today we are organizing one such course in our Central University for this GIAN program. The whole idea is to take out our obsolescence. And how to do it? By bringing experts from outside India, experts who are working in the forefront of the modern topics, on the current topics. We are inviting them to India, and with interaction with these experts, we are supposed to pick up new ideas, new areas for research. Because otherwise, what was happening in our Indian scenario, that we were becoming, especially in the university system, that we were becoming very complacent and very obsolete. We were doing the same research over the many years, completely unmindful of what is happening in the rest of the world. In some of the institutes of national importance, the situation was slightly better, but not a whole lot different. So these interactions are supposed to take us out of this, and we are able to invite our experts from Carnegie University, Dr. Vidyasagar Buddha amongst us, and he will tell us over the next 10 days about smart grid and sustainable energy sources, which are extremely important. In fact, you notice immediately right now that we have electric generation, electricity generation and distribution, but how inefficient it is. In the day, so many times power comes and goes. Well, it is not because of the lack of resources. We have enough. We have gas, we have coal, we have everything. And sunlight also is very plentiful. What we don't have is the good distribution system, good management system. And so hopefully knowing more about smart grid. By the way, smart grid is also not a new topic. It has been going on for the last 20-25 years. But we have not yet adopted. For us, it is still a very new thing. So hopefully the knowledge of smart grid will help us. Some of our future engineers who are here will be able to implement this and will get rid of this menacing problem of power cut and random power cuts. And hopefully we will also learn how to manage energy resources and will be able to supply energy to all sectors in an efficient manner. I hope our students and scholars who are here will pick up from these discussions and will implement the ideas in their research. I also hope that this visit of Dr. Poddar, I think he's the first person from Australia at least in the last 4 years, nobody else from Australia came here. He will tell us and excite us to interact more with Australian university. There are very wonderful universities in Australia, at least 10-15 of them in the really world-class universities. So he will excite us to interact with Australia. Maybe some of our scholars will go to Australia and we'll be able to start a collaboration with at least Carleton University in Australia. These foreign collaborations have been viewed by all the government, president, is to improve the quality, to bring the modernization into our system. And I think we should take up these opportunities to modernize. Because going backward, in fact I keep on telling this in many forums, that going backward is not really an option. We can't really go backwards. Time never allows us to go backwards. We can only move forward. So our young faculty members are here. Hopefully they will be able to start collaboration with Carleton and other Australian universities. And hopefully our research scholars and students will be able to take up the topic of smart research or research related to energy studies, sustainable energy in their research. I wish this workshop a great success. Our dean is here. I request him to make sure that we get more applications for GIAN program, at least from the side of the science, because GIAN is not really related exclusively for science, though science and engineering faculty are taking the lead in many places. And right now in India, I think there are at least 10 GIAN courses that are going on. Ours is one of them. So hopefully we'll have many such interactions, many such GIAN courses in our university in future. I wish this workshop great success. Thank you all.
On behalf of Honorable Vice Chancellor, Tripura University, and President of this session for his valuable discussion on higher education GIAN program and foreign collaboration with other universities. We are very much grateful to Professor Anjan Mukherjee, Pro Vice Chancellor, Tripura University, and guest of honor of today's program for his valuable speech. I wish to express our sincere thanks to the special guest of the program, Professor Mahesh Kumar Singh, Dean of Science, Tripura University, for his introduction on GIAN program. I like to express our gratitude to Dr. Vidyashagar Potwar, Curtin University, Australia, and chief guest of the program for his speech. We are thankful to local GIAN coordinator Mr. Shivendu Devarma and GIAN program coordinator Dr. Champanundi for their initiative in organizing the workshop. We like to thank the students, faculty members and non-teaching staff of Tripura University who are involved directly or indirectly with the program for their help. Finally, we like to thank the participants for attending this workshop.
The first part of the lecture session will be started.
Yeah, whenever we can schedule it. 16.
Morning everyone. Thank you all very much for attending my lecture. My name is Vidyasagar Poddar. I'm from Curtin University and I'm based in the School of Information Systems, which is part of the Curtin Business School. Okay. This is our university, one photo, just to give you an idea of how the campus looks like. I had a chance to look at your campus, which is very beautiful, nice and green all around. Not just the campus, but the city as well is very nice. And when I was flying yesterday from the plane, I saw down and it was all green everywhere. It was a very nice view for me to see that. This is my school. I work here. This is our building of the Curtin Business School, and it was recently built just 5-6 years ago when I started in the university. To give you a bit of background about myself, I studied my bachelor's degree in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, and then I went to do my master's in information technology in University of Newcastle in Australia, which is close to Sydney, 2 hours drive from Sydney. I did my master's research on software engineering with Professor Elizabeth Chang. When I finished my master's, she invited me to join Curtin because she moved to Curtin, and she asked me to join her to do PhD with her, which is why I moved from Newcastle to Perth, and this was in 2003, so nearly 13 years ago. And since then I have just been there. I did my PhD. When I graduated, I was the youngest PhD scholar in Curtin Business School, or in Curtin for that matter. And then I was employed as a research fellow and then promoted to senior research fellow. So overall in my career, I have only done research. So you can call me, I have very limited teaching experience. The only time I did teaching was during my PhD time, when my professor would attend a conference and I had to cover her for her lectures. So that is my teaching, but most of the time I have been in research. And I would say I am quite fortunate because not many people are in this role. All of them like to be in the research position, but they still have some teaching duties. After I finished my PhD program and I was employed, I started supervising PhD students. And one of my youngest PhD student, he came from Iran, and he was the one who broke my record, and now he holds the record of being the youngest PhD holder. So he was fortunate because he did not have to do master's degree. He had bachelor's, he enrolled into master's, but I was able to convert his master's program to PhD. So he directly did bachelor's and then PhD. So he saved like a couple of years of his academic career in getting a PhD. Over this many years since I started, which was in 2007 when I started working and when I finished my PhD, till now I have, I don't know, probably published more than 130 papers in journals and conferences altogether. And research becomes like has become like a second. If I'm not doing anything, then I'm doing research. Yeah, so that is how it is. And like Professor, Vice Chancellor Anjan Ghosh, sorry, get confused between the two names. Anjan Ghosh, he rightly mentioned that research plays a very critical role in universities around the world. And he also mentioned about world rankings. So there are many different companies or many different organizations that rank universities around the world. One such is QS ranking, and Curtin ranks very high in that ranking. It's not very high, but around 220 or something. QS only ranks 700 universities globally. So if you are within the 700 universities, you get a rank. If you are not within the 700 universities, you are in their list, but you are not ranked. Like IIT Madras, I think, is under 100 in that ranking or something like that. So it's a very good ranking. And when I read about why many universities in India are not ranked in that, and what Professor Ghosh also mentioned is about research. Indian universities are very good, very, very good in terms of teaching and offering placements to the students. But when it comes to research, that research culture is missing across most of the universities, because students prefer to get placed and start working rather than pursuing a PhD. So that culture has to change, and it is changing now. We can see changes happening within the academic universities, and this program or programs like this are, I think, will fuel such change within academia. So having said that, I think I will now go into the topic of our talk today. My background is computer science and software engineering. I believe most of you here are electrical background. Can I just have a show of hands who is electrical background? Okay, that's good. So I think you would get to learn something new. Electrical smart grid is the basis of electrical background, but a lot of things are on top of that make it smart, which is where computer science, software engineering plays a role. So I will have some discussions on that, and I hope you will enjoy that. You will get to learn, and I will also get to learn a lot from you over the next 10 days or so. This is another picture of Curtin Business School. So this is where we run the MBA program. It is in the city center, whereas the main campus is not in the city center. This is an example of just one of our computer labs, just to give you an idea of a different look. Probably I haven't visited the labs here, but anyway, what you need is a computer, and the computer is there. Doesn't matter which way it is set up. And a cafe just to relax on campus sometimes. Okay, so today's lecture I will give you a broad introduction to smart grids. Not a very technical talk today, but understanding why smart grid is required, who are the main actors, who are the stakeholders, what are the benefits, what changes have happened in India on the smart grid front and so on.
Commercial customer, industrial customer, and residential customers. Only communication happening here is shown in the blue line, which is the electrical communication, flow of electricity. The communication is done here by a system operator using a telephone. In the current situation, that has changed a little. We now can see quite a few parallels between energy generation as well as communication happening on both the sides. So that is the present situation. And in the future situation, and in the future, we will see even more integration between communication infrastructure and the power infrastructure. And that is what is envisioned to be part of smart grids. So the key point here is the smartening of the electricity is an evolutionary process, and it's not a one-time event. So it's not going to be like today we are using a traditional grid, and tomorrow all of a sudden we have started using smart grid. It is not going to happen like that. It is going to be an evolutionary process, and this is going to take some time. And it is important that it takes the needed time, because it is a big change that we are going to see. So people need time to actually assimilate, to accept the fact that the way electricity consumption is going to change is going to be quite different from what it was going to be in the past. This slide here shows you a comparison of different sources of energy. In the traditional grid, the main source of electricity, the main source of generation of electricity was from coal, hydroelectric, or nuclear power. In the traditional grid, you can see the main sources of generation was coal, hydroelectric, or nuclear. In comparison, when we look at smart grids, we see a number of different sources, renewable sources specifically, coming into the picture. So here you have solar generation, you have plug-in vehicles, you have wind, and so on. So all these different renewable sources add a new dimensionality to smart grids. It is good because a lot of energy can now be generated using renewable sources, which is not polluting the environment. So in a way, it is acting acting for the benefit of the society, for the environment. When we compare traditional grid versus the smart grid, there are a number of dimensions against which we can compare. In the previous slide, we only saw the type of resource that is used for generation. Yeah? Now let us go a bit more detail to see what other forms or what other dimensions we can use to compare these differences. Firstly, the approach taken by traditional grid is electromechanical. In comparison, smart grid offers a digital grid. Communication was only one way, where the utility communicated, sent the power to the end customer and consumer. Whereas in a smart grid, we see a two-way communication, where the users are equally involved in the flow of information. Users can communicate their consumption patterns, the amount of energy that they are using on a daily basis or an hourly basis, and the smart utility provider, the utility companies, can use that information to optimize their production based upon the real-time demand. Generation was centralized in the traditional grid where the generation happens at one end, it is transmitted and is distributed. Whereas in the smart grid, it is a distributed generation because we will have a large number of small generations happening independently as part of the DER. There were very few sensors within traditional grid, whereas in smart grid there are a lot of sensors that are capturing the state of the network throughout the network. So that provides a lot of information that can be used for capturing, that is captured for making intelligent decisions. Restoration approach was manual, whereas in case of smart grid has the feature of self-healing. So depending upon the changes within the network, smart grid can take corrective actions automatically to ensure that the reliability of the grid is ensured. Failures can result in blackouts in the traditional grid, whereas in smart grid it can be adapted, and we can use the concept of islanding to ensure that only specific parts of the network are compromised, but not all. Service providers who provide services to electrical customers and utilities, operations, the managers of the movement of electricity, bulk generation, who generate electricity in bulk, and so on.
Actually, who play a very important role in the overall workings of the system. Let us now look at the benefits of smart grids. We have smart grids improves the overall, and this becomes important because power quality is very critical for operations of a number of activities that rely on power. We have optimizing facility and averting constructions on backup power plants. It helps to improve or enhance the capacity and the efficiency of the existing electricity networks. Because with the use of smart grids, we can ensure that the demand can be managed and the production or the generation of power can be within that demand. It improves resilience to disruption because of its self-healing nature. As and when more energy is required, we can get more distributed energy resources and try to accommodate that demand. It enables predictive maintenance and self-healing responses to system disturbances. This is particularly important because this is not possible in the not very effective in the traditional grid. It facilitates expanded deployment of renewable energy sources. It also helps in accommodating distributed power, hybrid vehicles and wind. Further, smart grid automates maintenance, can assist in automating maintenance and operation. It also helps in reducing greenhouse gas emissions by enabling electric vehicle integration to the grid, which act as new sources of power. You can imagine when an electric vehicle is not being used during the daytime after it has completed its task of taking its traveler to work, it is just lying there in the open. That can be used to generate electricity and feed to the grid. So electric vehicles act as distributed and mobile sources of energy. It can reduce oil consumption by reducing the need for inefficient generation during peak usage periods. One of the challenges that traditional grids face is that during the peak time, if the demand suddenly increases, the traditional grids have to rely on sources that are polluting the environment. But with the smart grid attempts to curtail the demand, reduce the demand or manage the demand in such a way that this would not be necessary. In extreme cases, we would have to rely on it, but the extent or the frequency of such can be reduced. Further, electric vehicles can also be used as energy storage options. In a situation where lot of energy is generated, so the generation is more than consumption. What do you do with the additional generation? So you can use that. It can be stored. It can be stored in electric vehicles or some other storage options. Smart grid also provides consumers with number of other choices. They have the flexibility to choose a specific type of a electricity plan that suits their lifestyle. This is an example of a solar farm. What you can see here is a large area of land only covered with solar panels. And what that is showing us is energy can be harvested 24 hours a day. If not 24 hours, at least during the time when we have a sunshine. So this is a static example of solar farms. There are also new versions where these solar farms or these solar panels move in line with the sun's orientation. So you try to get as much solar generation as possible during the time when we have sunlight. So that brings us to a very important point to discuss is what are the key smart grid drivers? Why is it that people or institutions or governments are so interested and supporting the development of smart grid? There are a number of reasons for that, as you can see here. And we will go through each of these reasons in more detail. So let's start with the first driver, demand for energy in growing economies. You can see the amount of energy that is required in growing economies like India or China. The demand is huge because so much development is happening all around the world or even in these countries. So such growth, such high GDP in these nations is driving the demand for energy. Further, there are advances in technology that is leading the adoption of smart grid. Something that was not possible in the past because of cost maybe or many other reasons is now possible because those barriers for adoption have been removed. There is a need for energy security. Like I mentioned, with all these developing economies, they rely heavily on reliable source of power. So energy security becomes very important because we need to be sure, we need to ensure that whenever there is a need, there has to be supply. So whenever there is a demand, there has to be some supply. Climate change is further adding more, is another key driver, because people now realize the value or the challenge that we have in front of us in terms of variations to climate. That is also seen as a driver for smart grid. There is political pressure and policy and regulations by governments that are further fueling the adoption of smart grids. Strong economic growth in several countries, understanding the importance of renewable energy and increasing the awareness about all this amongst the end users is also making smart grids more and more common. The cost of technology has come down. Solar panels that used to cost a lot in the few decades back are now become affordable to even an end user. Many people have solar panels at their homes now. So the cost of technology is further fueling smart grid. The infrastructure reliability and security is critically important as well. We now have a lot of experience. There have been many successful projects around the world, And recently I read in the newspaper that Kerala has built one of the largest solar farms in the world. And this just goes to show the capability we have within India and also the experience that this brings. So we have it now in Kerala, and it is possible that this would spread in other cities as well or other states as well. Customers are also becoming very cautious now. They are also becoming aware of renewable and non-renewable sources, because in the end these are the people who get affected in a day-to-day life. When you are out on the road, when you are traveling to work or coming back from work, there is a lot of pollution, and they realize that they don't want this thing to worsen. So if they can do their bit to ensure that at least the generation of electricity of power is done using renewable sources, it will eventually impact the environment in a positive way. Now let's look at some of the stakeholders of smart grids. We have federal and state regulators who have a key interest in this. We have researchers who are investigating this area of smart grids. There's workforce. There are environmental groups who are campaigning for a better and a cleaner energy. There are utility providers who understand the value of this, and they are on the bandwagon as well. Policymakers, consumers, and even technology drivers, they all play a critical role in the realization of smart grids, and they are the key stakeholders here. Let us look at some of the investments that have been made globally to put this into context. So if you look at the first bar, it shows the highest investment is made by China. It's over more than to that is USA, just marginally above $7. So what you see here is a very clear trend that investment in smart grid is essential, and it is going to give you the results that are expected in terms of energy security. This graph from IEA was published in 2010, and what is interesting is the bar that shows the highest is India. And what this means is there is going to be a 500% rise in the demand for energy in India. And what is it? And what is going to be the solution for that? Yeah, how is that demand going to be met? As fossil fuels run out, we have to look for alternative and renewable sources. And that is what is happening within India as well, with Modi government's plan to have 100 smart cities. So it's a very long term and a plan with a long vision, because this information we have it already. It's already 6 years old, but still it shows you where we are heading and what we should do to ensure that when we reach there, we have sufficient we have secure energy. Applications of smart grid. Smart grids can be used for delivery optimization, demand optimization, and asset optimization. So these are the three things that we can do by implementing smart grids. So within delivery optimization, we have efforts to improve the efficiency and reliability of the power systems. For demand, we can empower the end user to better manage their demand or cut down on their consumption. And finally, asset optimization is reducing the risk and extending the life of this aging infrastructure. If you are able to cut down on the production, if you are able to cut down on the generation by optimizing the demand for the user, optimizing the user's demand so that the users use less energy, we would only need to produce less energy, which means this infrastructure can last longer and we would need less investments in the future for servicing or improving the infrastructure. These are some of the stats to show you that demand for electric energy will triple by 2050. So we have 34 years from now to make sure that we are secure to address this challenge. Distributed generation, including renewable and sustainable power, has grown and is expected to double every 2 to 3 years. So that is also a good sign. Generation of electricity accounts for 40% of US emissions. So if we are going to generate electricity using more renewable and less polluting options, that number is going to go down. Around the world, there have been a number of government and industry standardization initiatives that have been proposed and implemented to ensure smart grids are interoperable, so that everyone follows a standard. So there is standards proposed by US, by the NIST, European Union, Germany, China, Japan, Korea, even IEEE has a P2030 standard, and so on. Now let me talk a little bit about smart grids in India. What is the current state of smart grids here? In India, the smart grid initiative is under the Indian Smart Grid Forum, ISGF. It is a public-private partnership headed by or driven by the Ministry of Power. Smart Grid Roadmap of India is already out there and provides a lot of information, lot of valuable information on how this vision is going to be realized, because there is a nationwide rollout by 2027. So 11 years from now, we would have smart grid adopted in India. So that is not quite far, it is very relatively close in terms of this. So what are the tasks of IGS? One of the objectives or the deliverable for ISGF is to provide electricity to 300 million people who are currently not on the grid. Yeah, so this is other than the demand that we already have. So 300 million people who are not connected, they have to be brought to the grid. Additionally, they want to aim for improving power quality and reduce power cuts, reduce transmission and distribution losses, and the target is to reduce the power losses to under 10%. And smart grid, adoption of smart grid is one way in which this can be achieved. ISFG will formulate and monitor projects, evaluate standards and technologies, assist with resource requirements, and is expected to receive 30% funding by the central government on this initiative. From the utilities perspective, what are the key drivers for smart grid adoption? Reduction of transmission and distribution losses, peak load management, reduction in power purchase cost, better asset management, improving the life of the existing infrastructure, reducing serviceability, getting improved grid visibility on how the different aspects, different parts of the grid are performing, self-healing grid, and ability for renewable integration. From the customer's point of view, customers would have expand access to electricity, that is power for all. Everyone would have access to power. Improve reliability to supply to all customers. Improve quality of supply, so no more voltage fluctuations. user-friendly and transparent interfaces with utilities, prosumer enablement, where users act as producers as well as consumers, options to save money by shifting loads from peak period to off-peak periods. So these are some of the things why customers are interested in this. From the regulator's point of view or from the governance point of view, they will have a lot of satisfied customers, financially sound utilities who would be making less losses because of improved smart grid adoption, tariff neutral system upgrade, and reduction in emission intensity. Smart grid regulation in India is within the Central Energy Regulatory Commission. It enables the states to adopt or to adapt this regulation. So either the states can directly adopt what is being provided by the regulators, or based upon their context or based upon their situation, they could adapt it so that it is more practical to realize this vision. So what does this regulation cover? It covers the time of use tariff regime. So different rates for electricity at different times of the day. Demand response and mandatory rooftop generation for large customers. So this could be industrial customers, or it could even be large housing complexes or colonies we have which has many buildings and thousands or more tenants. Mechanisms for cost recovery and monitoring and evaluation of the ongoing projects. Smart meters in India are governed by the IS 16444 standard. So this is a plug and play and has anti-tamper feature. So this standard has been proposed to provide guidance for local and international manufacturers to manufacture smart meters that are compliant with the Indian regulations. And another objective is to bring down the cost of smart meters. So the expected range is going to be between $20 to $40, which is not a lot, which is around 1,000 rupees to 2,000 rupees. Government is announced 1 million smart meter rollout already, and the national program will provide volume which will bring down the overall cost for smart meters. There have been numerous pilot programs started since 2012. Some were successful, some were not so successful, and it's primarily because of lack of knowledge and underestimated cost. So now that we have gone through this exercise, we have seen some pilots projects gone through, we can learn and we can improve the future projects that would be initiated at a later date. There is also good knowledge from successful projects that have been conducted globally. So there is a lot of things to learn from this as well. Electric vehicles. 6 to 7 million electric vehicles are expected to be in the market by 2022. So which is 6 years from now, roughly 6 years from now. And what this is going to need? This is going to need charging stations that would be spread across the nation so that the vehicles could be charged and the vehicles could also be used as storage and distributed generators. This will need assessment of energy consumption by electric vehicles as well as storage and contribution. Vehicle needs to be in open to charge during the daytime. If we want to get the maximum outcome or generation by using electric vehicles, they have to be in the open. Only then they could generate reasonable energy which could be fed into the grid. So what we have seen is overall smart grid is bringing a change in the way that we see or in the way that we think about energy consumption and energy generation. Renewable energy targets. So, 175 gigawatts of renewables is to be installed over 7 years, from which 100 gigawatt will come from solar, 40 from rooftop. 20 million people injecting to the grid will be a large optimization and engineering challenge if we expect that to happen in the near future. And you can imagine the impact that it will have in terms of the complexity of the network and the manageability of the network. Solar panels in India at the moment are quite cheap, and volumes will even drive the prices further down. So, realizing these objectives does not seem to be a very challenging task, but managing that is going to be a challenging task. So, in conclusion, what we covered in today's session was the definition of smart grids and who the key actors are and why these actors are involved in the smart grid. What are the key drivers that are making these actors to participate in the smart grid phenomenon? We studied the differences between traditional grid and smart grid, and we saw that some of the important aspects against which these two types of approaches differ. We also saw the benefits and the drivers along with the stakeholders. And further, from an Indian context, we saw what is the current situation within India, what are its expected targets, what are the regulations and the rules that govern the adoption of smart grid, and so on. So, overall it is a very interesting picture at the moment, and it will be very good to see how this eventuates in the coming years. So, this concludes the first session of the GIAN program series on smart grids. Thank you very much.